Here we go, a classic head-to-head matchup with me and Cax. We played a lot of Labyrinth in our time, and this will be a great one. This is Legendary Tactics. So we are actually going to try the Anaconda scenario. I realized, even though I've been playing Labyrinth for years, I bought the game when it first came out, and got the digital version in early access, that I have mainly played Let's Roll and occasionally You Can Call Me Al as scenarios. So it's stunning to me, but I have actually not played a lot of the other scenarios. Just in my mind, I figured, well, it's just kind of starting the game at a different point. But I realized all of a sudden that by starting a game at a different point, suddenly cards that are, not relevant in the other in Let's Roll or You Can Call Me Al suddenly become actually pretty crucial cards in the other scenarios. So I've decided we're going to play through some of the other scenarios as well as showing them a little bit about how this all works. So this scenario starts basically in early 2002. So the regime change in Afghanistan has already happened. And so his first move is to recruit. That's a pretty basic opening move, especially since there's only a handful of cells on the board. He's got a pretty interesting mix of cards. A few of my minor events, I can maybe nick a cell here and there, but he's basically starting out with his own events. Nest would be an applicable event because this is a game where the Patriot Act begins in play. So that's going to be an interesting twist to the scenario. The main thing that I see for me is that the sanctions cards become playable, and that can take a big toll on jihadist funding. So we'll see what happens here as far as his next move. And he's going to go with leak. Looks like, oh, maybe he's reconsidering. Yeah. But probably as a jihadist, one of the first things you want is to really just get some cells down. It's a little bit too early maybe to be plotting, but anyway, he's going to test India's posture. That's going to be soft, which doesn't work well for me, as I'm basically hard on terror at the moment. In general, though, I don't mind playing with the global war on terror track at 0, because it means the election basically has no effect. And there he goes, loads a couple cells into India. But basically it means that the election has little to no effect on you. You can reassess without having to rebuild your support across the world. So in general, I'm not opposed to having this the global war of terror at 0. It's just obviously as soon as a country flips to the opposite side, then you're in a bit of trouble as far as you have to get that back on track, because otherwise you're going to be taking penalties on your wars of ideas. But in general, I've no problem with that. He's going to do some plots. One of the things I've noticed with Cax's play, he loves doing the plots, loves to get his funding really high, and I don't blame him. There's an extra card in it, and there's 5 extra cells that are available to be recruited. For the jihadist, it's tough working with low funding because you're limited in cards, and it's a double whammy really, because you're limited in cards and you only have 5 cells potentially to work with. So scanning my hand, my biggest priority is to end that regime change in Afghanistan. So if I can, I'm going to do that, but I'm going to first shore up Pakistan. Pakistan starts this game fair ally, which is a lot easier than poor neutral, which is what I'm used to. So I'm going to lock that one in, and then I'm going to see what we can do to maybe get some troops into Pakistan. So my play here is very much influenced by Let's Roll. That's usually the move you want to do in the first turn, is shore up Pakistan and get some troops there to just start disrupting in case there's any plots or, worst case scenario, jihads. But you can kind of, if you got a couple troops, it means they need to get 7 cells there before they can do something. So you get a lot of warning ahead of time. So he's going to recruit, and of course it's free recruiting into Afghanistan because of the regime change. So that's a very expected location for him to go into. Now it's a bit interesting to see what he's going to do. He does have a couple of my events that are definitely he's going to lose a couple cells. There's no way he can block that. So I'm very curious to see. It looks like he's just going to load up more into Afghanistan. I'm not worried about regime change there, but certainly plots are a bit of an issue because every time plots go off, it hurts my prestige. I'm going to throw this one into the reserves. And we're going to see if we can get maybe a bit lucky with... I really like that Sistani. I think we got a real opportunity with Sistani to maybe end that regime change. So I'm going to disrupt here, give myself restore that that prestige that the plot took. And now again, it's really interesting because he can't really. He's going to lose a couple cells here for sure in the next. Within the next couple turns, next couple rounds anyway. So, and Nest will help me. It's more of a long-term goal here, just to make sure that he can't, get a sneaky win by sneaking a WMD into the US. So, the Predator, he's going to just be recruiting, and I'm going to probably have to offset one of those. But probably, now that it's my event, I'm probably going to have to go and take one from, I don't know, it's going to be, because I don't know his cards, obviously, but I would guess that I'd want it out of Pakistan. It's just generally better play. And yeah, he doesn't have a lot of ops to work with either, which is nice. He's going to recruit again, probably. Well, he's got his funding high, get as many cells on the board. Obviously, the more operatives you can have, the more flexibility you get. Oh, he's going to take the event. So, well, it places a cell anyway, so that's fine. But I kind of like the fact that where I'm sitting right now. So I really think there's an opportunity to end this regime change if I can get lucky with my roll. And I can use this Sistani. This is really now or never because who knows? I don't have enough ops to work with for the rest. So I think we gotta give it a try here, because if while he has that cell, we can certainly, if we can end that regime change, that would be a great end to the first turn, because then that frees up those troops and makes recruiting a little bit harder. So. So we're going to try this. It's a bit of a gamble. We're going to go and put Afghanistan up to 2. Yeah, I like that. I like that event, but man, do I let him have Schengen visas? Well, actually, if I do have one in reserve. So let's give this a go. If we get lucky here. And I just remembered that he has too many cells for me to do a War of Ideas to get to good, I believe. So he's going to do a plot. He gets lucky. He wants to hurt that governance. But I'm hoping that, well, with the Nest, obviously, we've got the ability to see any WMDs that are appearing in the US. But Yeah, I really got to end that regime change. He's going to place a plot there, which could potentially undo that Sistani card. So I may be forced to block that plot. And then he's got to play special forces. It's only one op, so can't do a lot with it. He's going to try another plot again, and he misses that one. Good. So I'm going to, pull a cell. Again, with Afghanistan, there's a lot of cells there, but I just want to make sure Pakistan is as safe as possible. So we'll take the hijab event. Turkey tests poor, and we're going to choose the posture there. And yeah, we got Schengen visas. It's our last card. Let's do we're going to block the plot with the reserves there, so that should be good. So Jihadist funding is now 5, which is kind of where I like to see it. And this is his hand. He's got a lot of my events. He's only got Martyrdom and Jihadist videos, both very strong cards, high ops. But other than that, he's going to have to manage and mitigate things a little bit. Not that Sharia is a crazy good event, and I don't think even Ambar Awakening actually applies here. So he's going to do Martyrdom. He really is going to hurt my prestige. His goal is to get funding, hurt my prestige, and worsen the governance there. So that was a very good move before I get a bit more of a toehold. Now the question is, for his next card, what is he going to do? Doesn't want to necessarily give up Intel Community. It's too early. That's that's a card you play right at the end of your turn when it has next to no value. And Covert Action is, yeah, I think that card is entirely useless. There's no effect. And he is trying to decide between, I think he's going to start traveling, so getting more cells into Pakistan. Again, Pakistan is still key with that arsenal of WMDs. It's one of the sweet spots on the board. So I have election, and I have, interestingly, I have oil price spike. NATO is good. Quagmire is potentially very harmful depending on where my prestige is at any given time. But I'm just scanning, and the Sistani card is actually in the discard. So this will be a bit of a power play, and I will take a prestige hit when these plots go off. However, I think playing this for the event, grabbing Sistani from the discard, and ending the regime change there is about the best possible move that I can think of. So we'll do that. End the regime change. He hits with the one plot, hits with the other plot. So good timing on my part. Afghanistan was briefly a good governance, has crashed all the way down to poor after a lot of terrorist activity. But now my troops are free and clear, and Quagmire is not applicable, which is huge. That's such a bad card when that's dumped on you. Now the nation building isn't used in this case, but he's going to use it for the first plot anyway. May have been better to do a covert action or intel community as your first plot in that case, but maybe he misread the card. So he is going to get a plot in Afghanistan. His funding is quite good. Not sure if that was necessarily the best move, but the one thing that the jihadi player has as an advantage is those plots are expensive to block. They give funding. They disrupt governance. They're a really powerful tool. They really are, something that if wielded correctly, can really just tear down just as you're beginning to build the infrastructure of good governance in a bunch of countries, you get a few plots in there, and man, they can really disrupt the heck out of it. So now that Quagmire is safe to play, I'm going to take advantage and disrupt a couple more cells out of there. I'm wondering when I should time the election, because that's going to have to happen at some point or the other. So we'll see what... yeah, the NATO's not useful anymore, so that's don't need to worry about taking that event. But let's just let's disrupt first, get some prestige, and then we'll roll the dice and see who wins the election. And it is Democrats. So plot goes off, and I am in an interesting spot where I've got the Dems. Now my prestige isn't great, so this could be an opportunity. I find that it's never a bad idea to oh, he misses with the plots there. Oh well, like I get to remove the besieged regime in Somalia, so nothing huge there. And yeah, he's going to continue to plot. I think he landed a couple of them, but I guess just trying to hurt my prestige is his goal. That's the one that's taken the biggest hit in his eyes. That's what he wants to, where he wants to hit me. So anyway, we'll see what we can do. This covert action is a good little event if you get lucky. Maybe we'll just we aim for Iraq, and we got the roll, so Iraq is now neutral, which is good. Just makes it that much easier potentially for me to react if he is if he's going to do anything in Iraq. I'm going to send the troops home. It's going to put me into basically where I've got 9 cards now going forward. Might have been there might have been another spot. I might rejig them somewhere else, but you know what, I think it's probably best that I send them back to the troop track now, because there are 2 plots there. I don't want to take the prestige hit, so it's perfect timing. Get them out of there, let Afghanistan deal with their own issues, and then that'll give us an extra card. Now pirates, again, not very not a big deal. We're gonna just try on a whim, try and affect Turkey. And I'd forgotten when I did that the global war on terror modifier was -1, because the world is slightly hard on terror. So this basically, those 2 plots now fire to no effect. There's nothing they can affect governance with. My troops are out of there, so there's no prestige issues, and I'm happy about that. That is exactly, Afghanistan is more or less exactly where I would want it to be. I have no problem if, it wasn't good, but hey, I will take that the way that happened. I want to make sure that, we have no regime changes, no Islamist rule, no regime changes on the board, and then I've got maximum flexibility. So, it looks like he is going to be moving around. So I'm going to basically undo that with my special forces, who can reach into Afghanistan. I know what he's headed for. He wants to get to a jihad if possible, because I've pulled my troops out. So I'm going to make it a little bit harder on him. He's going to travel his cells north, so he's in a position to do a major jihad and potentially flip Afghanistan to Islamist rule, which would give him a spot for him to recruit. I get a 1-up, so I'm going to use that for a war of ideas and see if I can't get this a little more neutral. I want the world to be a little more neutral, so just pick a country, and Europe, hey, why not Canada? And Canada is soft on terror, which is perfect, brings me right in line. I've got a 0 modifier. And now I have to really think about what to do about Afghanistan, because it could go to another regime change, in which case we're right back to where things began. I don't have enough ops to do to drop troops in and disrupt, which would be my preferred move, I think. I've got enough to get there, just don't have enough to disrupt in time. I suppose I could throw 2 ops into reserves and then spend them on a disrupt, but I don't know. It just seems like it's a bit of a, it might be a bit of a lost cause. We'll see what happens with that, because he does need a couple hits and he may not get them, but it's a bit of a tricky thing here, so maybe we should send a couple troops down. Actually, you know what, we'll bring them over from Gulf States, because Gulf States is pretty safe, so let's do that. And that way it delays his, he needs a superiority of 5 cells in order to do the major jihad, so having 2 troops there just, holds him up a bit, and I can disrupt a couple, and with blew the reserves on it, but yeah, I think that makes it very tough for him to to rebuild that. He's got to get another 4 cells in there, and that's going to be a bit tricky, I think, given that he doesn't have anywhere easy to recruit anywhere on the board, so it's going to be very interesting to see. Now he's got a bunch of his own events here, so it's good. Gaza War is one of those events that, as the American player, I hate to see, because you take a prestige hit and you have to discard a card. It's one of the jihadi abilities that I cannot stand, is the fact that they can disrupt your hand and your gameplay at a crucial time. And luckily the Al Jazeera card happens to be useless, because the troops were pulled out of the Gulf states. That makes that one safe. So he's going to play the Gaza War, which is a great leading card to play, and pulls out a 3-op card, but luckily not one I am worried about event-wise. I mean, it always hurts to lose 3 ops, but I am, I do have still have 8 cards, so it only puts me, 1 card behind. And so we'll see what happens here. Looks like it's going to be some recruiting, and he gets a couple hits out of that, which isn't bad. That is going to help. So I'm looking at my hand now, and I'm so glad that Al-Azhar was not taken, because that is a great, with no regime changes or no Islamist rule on the board, that is a massive hit to his funding. So I'm going to do what I can to disrupt him and undo his what he's planning. Mass turnout's a great card to hang on to, but it's too bad you can't really hold on to them. It's just too good. You got to have that 3 ops. If you don't have a regime change to worry about, then it's a great, great to have those 3 ops. So anyway, I disrupted him. He's kind of, in a way, forced to use a Bin Laden card to recruit, and he gets 1 out of the 3. So that's about the correct odds. He got 2 out of the 3 last time, so that's 50-50. So he's 3 for 6, which is about average luck-wise. He might tell you different, but that's right on par with what you'd expect. And he's going to take this event, and Abu Sayyaf's one of those interesting events that I've never seen it really dramatically impact a game. It's kind of something that has to be on the radar of the American player, but it's not as Philippines is a little bit out of the way. I guess the only good thing is that it's right next to America, so if you're recruiting and then sending those guys to America, then that can be a good thing. But other than that, I never stress too much about Abu Sayyaf as a card. Try to War of Ideas on Gulf states. You know, one of the things that the American player has to do, and this is probably the most frustrating part of the American gameplay, is when you're trying to get a War of Ideas going in, you know, just especially trying to get it to good governance, and you just roll after roll. You spend, you know, spend 2 cards, 2 rolls, miss, and that's your turn. So not very dynamic, but it needs to be done. And now we're looking at his cards. All of those cards are safe for him to play. He has some good ops, so there's still some good possibilities, but he doesn't have a ton of things going on. A couple cells in Iraq and a few cells in Afghanistan, and one all the way down in the Philippines. It's one of the strategies actually that I work on as an American player. If I can, I have no problem with playing events like, you know, one that places cell, like place a cell in Somalia, or even ones which recruit, you know, around the world or whatever. Because if the cells are split up, it takes time and ops to get them together and to coalesce into some sort of threat of major jihad. And it can take a lot of ops. Like if you look at what's happening here in Afghanistan. Now he tried a jihad there, but you know what's happening in Afghanistan. I think that jihad was a wasted move. I think he was. I don't know whether that was a mistake or whether he was doing the wrong thing. But I'm going to hit his funding right now. Drop that by 4, so that puts him, you know, at 4 funding. Threatened to drop down to 1. Anyway, as I was saying, one of the things that I look to do is I'm totally happy with, you know, using events and so forth to scatter those cells, because you know it makes it so hard for them to come together, and it takes a lot of time, especially if they're, you know, you have a cell in Philippines and 2 in Iraq. You're trying to get your act together. If your guys are scattered, you either have to take time or you need to rely on air travel, which is notoriously unreliable. You know, best case scenario, you're going to lose half the cells on average that travel by air. So, you know, even going from Afghanistan to Iraq is still, you know, via Iran or what have you, still, that's to move 3 cells there. You're going to have to spend 6 ops. That's a lot of ops just to get there, and then you got to do a major jihad, and so it's not an easy thing. To, you know, get around the board. So if I can scatter those cells, have 1 down in the Philippines, you know, 1 down in I don't know, Somalia, 1 down in Israel, I don't know. It's just, you know, without air travel, assuming that they roll average on air travel, they're going to lose the cells, which means they have to re-recruit them. When you don't have a regime change or an Islamist rule country to draw from, again, you're looking at a 50-50 split in most cases in terms of recruiting. So, you know, it's really a crapshoot that way. So, but I'm just going to continue to disrupt him. Any cells that I can send back, I'm really hoping that he can't boost his funding, and he's going to have to go down to low funding, or tight funding, which is great. He's going to try and plot, I'm sure, and he did get that 1 plot off, but he doesn't have a lot of ops to work with, and you know, it's going to be a tricky thing. He's going to try plotting there, and I'm going to use this to basically just I've only got a handful of options. I think it might just be worth maybe discarding it. We'll see. I'm just kind of doing some calculations here. Don't have any countries at good yet. The world is slightly soft in my favor, so War of Ideas might be a good choice here, just to see if I can flip you know, a country, you know, to my side. I'm not going to pick I want to pick one that kind of gets me another soft country there that's going to be harder for him to kind of reverse, especially if I can. I don't know if I want to commit all the way to soft, because if I do need to reassess and I do need to do a regime change, it means I start out with one heck of a negative modifier. So yeah, he's going to add some more cells. I know him as a player, and the lack of funding, the fact that he's not flush with cash, is going to literally drive him nuts. So he's looking for ways to plot and get some income. I know that's what he's thinking. So yeah, there's the first plot. Didn't want me to test some Schengen countries. He's going to split it up a bit. Gets the plot in Iraq, which I'm fine with. I'd much rather he plot there, because I don't take a hit in my prestige. The sheriff card, I'm very glad I got that one, because obviously that card places a cell and reduces your, or sorry, I think it removes a cell, sorry, and it basically just lowers the governance. And there we go, got Gulf states to to good governance. While I'm going to strike while the iron's hot here, and I'm going to get Pakistan as well. My prestige is through the roof. I've got it at 11 now, which is awesome. It's going to be very tough. He's going to have to really get a lot done over the next little while for this to work in his favor. I know what he's trying to do. He's just trying to travel, get a bunch of guys over to Iraq, where he can attempt a major jihad and get a source of recruits. And he's given up on just plotting in Afghanistan for now. I'm going to just keep on rolling while I have all the modifiers in my favor. I missed that one, but I'm just going to keep on rolling to make sure that I get the the wars of ideas, get as many good countries going as possible. Special Forces is actually an interest. We'll take the event here just to mess him up a bit. Now he's got to think about, how do I recruit, how do I get some guys there. He would have, if he'd had a 3-ops card and another 3-ops card, he could have attempted a major jihad in Iraq. But now he is forced to stumble around and hopefully find someone. So it delays the jihad for a bit of time. He ends up missing the roll, which is great. And I know he's hanging on to that oil price spike till the last possible moment, so it gives him an opportunity to maybe get the best cards. If you can, oil price spike is great to hang on to until the last possible moment, mainly because you never know what cards the other player might be holding that they have to play. And if you can make that one of the last cards of your hand, what Cax did here is fine. If you feel you need some help, like for example a martyrdom operation, then hey, take it. Because he needs. I know he's worried about his funding, so it's going to be interesting to see where he plots. I imagine it'll be in Central Asia there. So there is another one that's I'm gonna choose Benelux's posture, and I'm gonna hit his funding a little bit here. A couple cards. I've got Backlash in hand, which is great as well. So if he thinks he can plot his way back to having a good income, then that will backfire on him. So as far as martyrdom operation, little does he know that I can actually cancel out the income benefit of that card. So he attempts to recruit, still looking to set up a major jihad in Iraq, which is a good move. But now he's down to either wasting that oil spike on a 3-ops card, doing some recruiting or something, or doing a plot or whatever, and at a time when it might not make sense. Now I'm going to do Saudi Arabia, managed to get that to a better standing, but I really don't want to play Wahhabism. I didn't know he had martyrdom. Well, no, I believe I did know he had martyrdom because he pulled it from the discard pile. But man, that's a tough card to play. It gives him a lot of funding. But anyway, maybe we can mitigate that. Oh, and we did that. So we managed to get Saudi Arabia to good, which means that he only gets a 1 funding from Saudi Arabia's governance. That can be a very powerful card when they're poor governance. Because obviously if he's a poor governance, he's going to get a 3 funding boost from that card, so it's tough to play it as the American, but luckily I did the War of Ideas first and that minimized the damage. I'm going to play my Backlash, which is perfect timing on that plot, so he's going to gain 0 funding from it. He's going to trash my prestige a little bit and so forth, but at the end of the turn basically he is he's basically down to 2 funding now, which is exactly where I want him. He's got 5 cells on the board. They're all scattered to the wind, and he needs money quickly, and it's just not gonna happen. So he's looking at his cards now, and he's got Predator. Unfortunately, Quartet isn't playable because that'd be great if it was. But the other ones, Clean Operatives, that's a powerful card. I don't know if he can really take advantage of it the way that he might want to, although it would bring in a couple, he would be able to use it. I mean, normally it's used to get cells to the US, but in this case, he may take it just to get some cells from the far-flung reaches of wherever, Philippines and Central Asia, and say, hey, come on, let's meet in Iraq and let's have a jihad. And he's going to take this, I'm sure, to do some traveling. I imagine that's his plan, just get his everything lined up. Now, I don't have any cards really that could help. Iran might be able to. Martyrdom Operation actually could also help remove a cell, and this is a kind of a can be a neat trick with the American side, is if you have the enemy cells in a spot where they can't really do any damage to your prestige, you can actually let the Martyrdom Operation fire, and basically in this case it's going to cost him a cell and he's not going to be able to do his jihad, which is means he's going to have to he's going to have to find another way to get the cell on the board and so forth. But he was smart about it, though. He plotted up in Syria, so we'll see. We'll use the Iran card instead, and that will, again, just to get in his way. The plot goes off, gets a bit of funding, which means he can recruit, but that Predator card is also sitting there, and he knows he has to play it. So it's luckily the Quartet for him can't be played, because that would restore a lot of the damage that his plot's been doing. It's basically, it would reverse them. But he's just going to recruit into Iraq, see how he does, and he misses both, thankfully. So that's gonna, I'm sure, be very annoying for him. And let's see what he does. He can't play Predator right now because that'll undo some of his good work. So he's gonna see if he can get a lucky roll with this, and he misses again. So definitely unlucky on his part. I need to capitalize on that. So I'm going to get Iraq to good, and that means that KSM is now in play. If there are any plots that hit there, then that is where they're going to hit. I'm going to hurt his funding now, and that's going to, I'm hoping that'll drive him nuts, and he's going to recruit. He may take this event, I'm not sure, but It's only for 1 cell in each. It's not quite as good. So he's just going to recruit in Iraq. And he gets the 1. And he's only got the 1 cell available. So now he's going to go for the jihad. And we'll see how this goes. This will be interesting. No, no, and no. Wow. Amazing for me. He must be yelling at the screen right now. That gives me a very, very decided advantage here. So I have the Kashmir card, which is great ops, but I actually don't have a great hand because I want to hang on to KSM. I know he's going to be plotting, to get the. I know he's going to be plotting to get more income back. So if I can, use KSM, I really want to hang on to him. But I really don't want to play Kashmir. Kashmir totally hurts everything I'm trying to do. And I also want to hold on to sanctions until later in the turn, just in case he gets a funding boost of some sort. I can negate that. And I really want him to be sitting at tight funding for as long as possible. Again, it just makes it tough for him to operate. He's going to be 2 cards down every turn, minimum. And so let's see how this do. I'll use the reserves. So that'll place a cell in Somalia, which is great news. That means he's even more scattered to the winds. But I'm sure he's just happy to get a cell on the board. Now he knows he's got to play this Predator card. He could plot with it. Could be interesting. I'm not sure exactly what he's going to do here, because yeah, those cells in Iraq I think should be active. I don't know why that might be a bug in this, because he just did a major jihad and they should have all flipped up to active. So he's gonna have to do something here to, in terms of mitigating that card. It's gonna be tough though, because if he recruits and he misses with both, and he's down to 2 cells, and that's it. That's a very vulnerable spot. So I don't know what he's thinking about here. It's could be an interesting situation. And I'm still sitting on KSM, and I'm still sitting on sanctions, so I'm not sure. My prestige is very healthy at 10. Global War on Terror is totally on my side. That's been great to boost my prestige every turn. Yeah, he's kind of trapped here. I don't know what he's looking to do. It's a very tough move. I mean, I do have Jordan now on my side. That's what the card, the War of Ideas, I played on last turn. Got Jordan on my side. We still ways to go before we're at the at 12. But man, as soon as that steamroller starts rolling, it's very hard, especially with prestige as high as that. It's going to be very hard to stop the steamrolling of good governance countries across the Middle East. I mean, basically I'm at 7 resources now. I'll aim for Pakistan, get that up to 9, and you know what, he's gonna forfeit actually, which might be viewed as chickening out to some degree, but I can't really blame him. He's had a bunch of bad luck this game, and realistically, looking at my hand, I believe I could have deployed in Iraq and disrupted. Those cells should have been face up, because he had done he had done the disruption, the jihad there, and so those cells should have been face up, and they weren't. I'm not sure. That just seems to be a glitch in the game. So as soon as he played that Predator card, I mean, it would have made it very tough for him to win. And really, I don't think there's any shame in forfeiting at that stage. But anyway, thanks for watching. If you've made it this far, hope this was enjoyable for you to watch and to listen to. I hope it gave you some ideas on strategy and so forth. My name is NATO, and this has been Legendary Tactics. Please like and subscribe. Take care.